Wedding photographers of Reddit, what was your "they're not gonna last long" moment? I'm a videographer, and the groom called me a couple days after the wedding. He wanted me to make sure I didn't include any footage of him checking out the women at the wedding. While shooting video, I attached a microphone to the groom for audio and proceeded to prepare for the ceremony. Just as I was about to adjust my audio settings, the groom stepped into another room with a friend. As I put on my headphones, I overheard the groom confiding in his friend, describing the wedding as a wedding of convenience and reassuring them not to be concerned about what would happen in their relationship. Bride looked visibly miserable the entire ceremony. While photographing the men's getting ready portion, the groom repeatedly kept joking about killing himself. During the toast, the bride ran off to the bathroom for about 30 minutes and came back wiping her tears with her eyes red and puffy. Neither of them had any chemistry at all. It made no sense why they were together to me. That was the last wedding I shot. One of those hotel venues that can run 2 weddings at the same time. Bride from our wedding is found in a hotel room with the groomsmen from the other wedding doing coke before the first dance. End result was we got paid and told no need to edit or deliver pics. Safe to say, it didn't last the night. In another life, I worked catering shifts. Loads of Saturday weddings. I'll never forget the best man's toast of the groom. It was a shameless roast. He spoke openly about the groom's willingness to shag anything when he's drunk. He then went on and on about the groom's deadly gambling habit and his short fuse when he doesn't win. He asked the stone-faced groom *, how many thousands of dollars in golf clubs have you destroyed or lost in countless pawns? *, nobody was laughing. The bride had tears in her eyes, and the groom's parents sat in stunned silence. The engagement session. The couple was in from out of town because she had just taken the bar exam to become a lawyer. At the end of the session, I gave them a prompt to share with each other what they were proud of each other for. He couldn't think of a single thing. Somehow they still got married, complete with the groom drinking 11 IPAs plus several shots before the ceremony, mother of the bride so drunk for family photos she pretended to strip, and the groom and all the groomsmen wearing camo hats with neon orange letters that said titties and beer. For the entire wedding day. Including sunset couples photos where he refused to do anything I suggested, nearly spat chew right on my feet, kept farting on purpose, and loudly complained about how all he wanted was to go have sex. Went to a wedding during college to my friends that got married who graduated 2 years prior to me. They had a beautiful wedding on a boat off the Keys, and as the best man gave his speech, he was really drunk by this point, just shouted out, "You don't deserve her, you literally got a blow job from a stripper, no make that 2 strippers at your bachelor party. Peace out." He dropped the mic and tried to do a dramatic exit, but by this point, we were all stuck on this boat in the middle of the ocean. It took an hour to get back to port, and it was the most awful and awkward hour of our lives for everyone on that boat. Said this before. Third wedding, and the best man, the groom's brother, starts his speech. "Well, welcome back everyone. Good to see some new faces, and some old ones. I think my first clue was when the bride showed up with some bad makeup, clearly trying to cover her black eye, while most of the rest of the family seemed far more into the free food and booze than the wedding itself. Oh yeah, never paid me either. Classy people. Ooh, finally one of these I can contribute to. My mother was a wedding photographer till I was about 18 to 19, and I helped out on many of them. The one that stands out the most was when we were at a campsite where both the wedding and reception were being held. About halfway through the reception, I hear the groom start laughing maniacally. I peeked over his way and could see 2 groomsmen hauling the thrashing and screaming bride towards the lake. They threw her into the freezing cold water with her veil and dress still on. When she got out of the water, I genuinely thought she might shoot somebody. Saying she looked like a drowned rat would have been an insult to rats. Her hair and makeup and probably the dress were ruined beyond repair. The fact that the groom laughed and didn't do anything stuck with me as being a dog shit move even as a teen. Apparently, she thought so too because IRC, they didn't even make it 6 months. Bride was such a monumental bitch, her mom gave me a $500 tip for not walking out on the event when she was treating everyone, even her now husband, like a piece of shit employee. She did the whole clicking fingers thing when wanting someone to do something for her, and she berated the DJ for grabbing a sandwich when he'd been there for about 8 hours and was told that he should have brought his own lunch and she would be taking the cost of the food, like an open buffet style, out of his paycheck. They were divorced within 3 years, but not before having 3 kids that have stupid names. Wedding photographer from India here. 1. Bride's mom dissed nonstop about the groom to a couple of our photographers. She believed that her daughter is too beautiful for the guy they promised her hand to and how she'd rather have him die sooner than seeing him with her daughter post the wedding. 2. Bride and the groom had the first dinner separately because the bride wasn't just in the mood to have their reception dinner together. 3. This is the final nail in the coffin. Post the wedding, when we were about to photograph portraits of the couple, the groom walked up to us saying that he's too tired from the wedding, so it'd be better if we could use the photos from the previous weddings we shot and morph his face onto those, and walked away. They divorced 3 months later, tongue sticking out. When the groom looked at her like she was the love of his life, and she treated the day like her prom and ignored him. I think they lasted 6 months. Groom didn't want to participate in any wedding pictures after the ceremony. I believe he was more interested in drinking beers with his buddies. I don't think they lasted a year. Oh man, I was a wedding photographer for about 5 years. I get being awkward on camera and not wanting to do any public PDA. I'm very awkward myself. But when prompting couples for fun poses like whispering obscenities in each other's ear for a laughing shot, nuzzling close together, etc., most couples eventually let their guard down and enjoyed holding each other. It was so sweet. A few times though, I had couples that visibly didn't want to be near each other at all. Once the shot was done, they went back to standing a foot apart. They would complain about each other and make fun of each other in front of me. It always left me with a bad feeling in my gut, and most of the time the marriage didn't last long. When I worked as a wedding planner for a hotel chain, the groom had found out his bride was having an affair with her brother's best mate. The bride's mother knew about it, but insisted on the wedding and paid a fortune. The groom wasn't drinking much and at the speeches, stood up and revealed he knew and said he was getting an annulment. He then took his best man on his honeymoon. The honeymoon the bride's parents had paid for. At the rehearsal dinner, every toast to the bride was some euphemistic variation of "I'm so glad you finally found someone to put up with your bullshit." They barely made it to the 6-month mark. I'm a wedding photographer. Most of my couples are super awesome. Occasionally couples are grumpy with each other during photos, and it's not a great look, but honestly, I like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Your wedding day should be a happy day, but sometimes it's just stressful. Stress can get to people and make them act in a way they normally wouldn't. I think the worst moment I witnessed was when a couple clearly didn't know each other very well. The guy made a comment about not knowing she had OCD during photos, and her mom whispered behind me, "You have no idea." I have no idea if they're still together. There was a lot more, but at the wedding, the groom did cocaine and called bride's father a cocksucker in front of her friends. They didn't last a full year. Over coffee, at our initial "do they want to hire me" meeting. They argued bitterly the entire time, and eventually, the groom just sat back in his chair with his arms crossed and wouldn't speak to either of us. I went home and the next day, emailed them the old "something suddenly came up" and that my schedule had unfortunately changed. Red flags aren't just for the people in the relationship. Vendors see them and heed them. Triangular flag. Wedding band, not photographer, but I'd say the one where the groom was caught shagging a bridesmaid during the reception. Honorable mention to the one where the groom and his new brother-in-law's funny play fighting very suddenly stopped being funny. Asked the groom in a recorded interview why he asked her to marry him, and he said, "The pressure to get married." They lasted less than 2 months. Hadn't even finished the video, and they were over. When the groom told the bride she couldn't have cake because she was overweight. Lasted a year. He gained weight, faced with tears of joy. The groom didn't want to put on a suit to take portraits, even after the bride insisted, because it's uncomfortable and hot. Different wedding, saw the groom down an entire bottle of wine in one go when he finally had a minute to himself. I took the picture thinking it was just going to be a goofy moment, until later on, while I was editing pictures, I realized what I was seeing. Oh wait, another one. The bride was 30 minutes late. When I was in the room with the bride while she was getting ready, she told bridesmaids how her sister drove her all around town because she couldn't make up her mind about if she really wanted to get married. Not a wedding, maternity photos. When the jokes about pushing each other off the cliff we were photographing on started sounding a little less jokey. They are co-parenting decently now after the restraining order ran out post-birth. One of the bridesmaids cried the entire time from makeup till reception. Would have nothing to do with the groom. Kept wanting photos of just her and the bride. 8 months later, bride and groom are separated and she up and elopes with the bridesmaid. When cutting the cake, she playfully got some on his face. He proceeded to grab a giant chunk and punch her in the face with it, several times hard. She was digging it out from underneath her eyelids bawling, and her dad needed to be held back. Edit. A lot of people have been asking, so here is a bit more backstory. My guess as to why people were holding the dad back was that the groom was in full marine dress uniform and they used his sword to cut the cake. That sword was very much in arm's reach of the groom after this happened, so everyone was probably worried something really bad could happen if those two got near each other. After the incident, it was really awkwardly silent as the groom apologized to the family, and if I remember correctly, this was 10 years ago or so. Him and the dad went outside for around 20 minutes, then came back in. The rest of the reception went normally after that. I'm not a photographer, but I used to work with a wedding cake baker staging and setting up. It was always a bad sign whenever I saw the groom smash the cake into the bride's face during the first bite when she didn't. If they both did it, my boss never said anything, but if he did it to her and she hadn't done it to him at all, she would say it wouldn't work out. She had a pretty good track record. Not a photographer, but at the ceremony, the minister asked the bride's friends and family to say some affirmation, like we do, or similar, about how they supported the marriage. Those people said the affirmation and cheered loudly. The minister then asked the groom's friends and family to do the same thing. Dead silence. The minister, very flustered, said, "Hey, how about I give you folks another chance," and again asked the groom's friends and family to affirm their support of this marriage. This time, dead silence. Minister continued with the ceremony. Couple lasted maybe a few years. Backstory: many of the groom's friends and family had begged him not to marry this woman, up to and including the day of the wedding. She was that horrible.